Our armed forces deal a severe blow to armed terrorist groups in Homs, Al-Raqqa and Aleppo. Ministers of Electricity, Health and Water Resources conduct an inspection tour of areas in Aleppo damaged by armed terrorist groups. Iran reiterates rejection of foreign intervention in Syria and affirms that any solution must be reached through dialogue. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to our news for today. Army units have dealt over the past 24 hours severe blows to the armed terrorist groups who had kept attacking citizens and law enforcement troops in Al-Hassan and neighboring towns in Homs suburbs. They killed and wounded a large number of them. Among the terrorists identified were Abu Qassar, a Syrian, who was killed, and Sameh Abdullah Daye, who was wounded. Al-Hassan town is famous for its historical castle and its decent residents. The Takfiri terrorists infiltrated into this beautiful town, which they turned into a headquarters for the terrorism. They attacked the citizens of the town and neighboring villages. They spared no one. They burned houses and deported inhabitants. The people of the region tell stories about the crimes to which they have been exposed to by the armed groups. However, armed forces have been able to confront them and restore stability to the area.
I call for eliminating the armed men. We want to live. We want our children to live in security. Our means of livelihood has been cut off. We are no longer able to get our means of livelihood. May God protect the army. People have been displaced because of the armed men who stole our things and ransacked our houses. They have left us nothing. No one understands the situation we are in and what kind of life we are leading.
Competent authorities confiscated today a factory for manufacturing explosives in Baba Hood in Homs. Authorities also found inside the hideout large quantities of weapons and chemical materials used to prepare explosive devices. An inspection tour of services in the governorate of Aleppo was carried out by the Ministers of Electricity, Health and Water Resources, during which they were briefed on the situation at the site of the explosion that took place last Sunday near Al-Hayat and Al-Markazi hospitals. The ministers stressed the need to follow up the necessary measures in order to rehabilitate the area destroyed by the armed terrorist groups.
A number of ministers have toured Aleppo to be briefed on the services situation after the armed terrorist groups wreaked havoc in the governorate. Minister of Electricity Imad Khamis visited the site of the explosion that took place last Sunday near Al-Hayat and Al-Markazi hospitals and killed and wounded dozens of citizens. Minister Khamis said the maintenance operations are underway to rehabilitate the electricity damaged in the area. The services situation regarding the drinking water sector is still good, as the Governorate's Council is set on distributing water in tanks and through fire squads in the areas where the inhabitants do not have access to drinking water due to the damages caused by the mercenary inhabitants. The inhabitants in the governorate expressed their satisfaction over the efforts exerted by concerned sides in order to provide the basic requirements so that the people would continue their lives and overcome the extraordinary circumstances, particularly regarding the health sector. The people of Aleppo are determined to defend their homes with a stronger determination and confront the mercenary terrorists who are trying to undermine the governorate's infrastructure.
Authorities captured the two terrorists, Halil Hamdan bin Shahada and Awad al-Bakri bin Khalaf, who were driving a stolen car on the highway between Al-Raqqa and Tel Aviv. They were attacking citizens and vandalizing public and private properties. In cooperation with local residents, authorities in Jaramana broke into a hideout used by terrorists and captured two gunmen. Authorities also confiscated a machine used for money forgery and forged foreign currencies. Our armed forces continued to clear At-Tadamul neighborhood in Damascus from the armed terrorist groups who spread panic among citizens and destroyed public and private properties. The armed forces entered Dabul and Zilekha neighborhoods, the place known for harboring many terrorists who used to set up barricades to block roads and alleys. The area witnessed fierce clashes on 4 directions. A large number of armed men were killed, while others fled to neighboring areas, leaving behind huge devastation in buildings and shops. The Syrian Arab Army also reached the outskirts of Yalda. Iranian new Foreign Minister Ali Akbar Salehi said today that his country will consider a decision on the Egyptian proposal to resolve the crisis in Syria. Mr. Salehi pointed out that Iran accepts the Egyptian proposal in principle, and it has submitted an additional proposal that includes inviting 2 more countries, one of them is Iraq, to the 4 countries of Iran, Egypt, Saudi Arabia and Turkey. Salehi said that his proposal will be discussed during the meeting in Cairo today. For his part, Iran's Foreign Ministry spokesman Ramin Mahman Parasat renewed his country's rejection of foreign intervention in Syria's internal affairs, affirming that the solution to the crisis lies in halting the support of armed terrorist groups, putting an end to terrorist operations, and starting a dialogue. Answering a question on the threat of U.S. Secretary of State Hillary Clinton to use military intervention in Syria, Mahman Parasat asserted that the most successful solution to the crisis lies in the non-interference of foreign countries, because any military intervention might lead the whole region to war. He renewed Iran's support of any plan to resolve the crisis in Syria through peaceful means. Finally, Special Representative of the Russian President for the Middle East Affairs, Deputy Foreign Minister Mikhail Bogdanov, affirmed that the former UN envoy to Syria Kofi Annan's plan and the Geneva Conference decisions should be the base on which a solution to the crisis in Syria is built. In an interview with Russia Today channel during his visit to France, Bogdanov pointed out that until now no plan has been crystallized to substitute Annan's plan and the final statement of the Geneva Conference. He noted that he met with Syrian opposition figures in Paris and held consultations with French officials that touched upon the current situation in Syria and means of finding a political solution to the crisis. He considered that any precondition to start dialogue is unrealistic, pointing out that no one can impose anything on the Syrian people according to foreign will, adding that the Syrian leadership remains strong and united. With this, we end our news for today. For more information about Syria and the region, you can visit our website in English, syriaonline.sy. Up next, the latest business and market news with Vani after a short break.
Good afternoon. Agriculture Subsidizing Funds Management Council, chaired by the Minister of Agriculture, announced the mechanisms and amounts of subsidizing this year's cotton crops. The land planted with deep well-irrigated cotton would be granted 3,200 Syrian pounds per acre because it needs diesel, and 1,400 Syrian pounds per acre to the river-irrigated land. Moreover, some farmers' associations were subsidized in Latakia Governorate in the previous 2 years, based on the Branch Agriculture Committee's approval. The Director General of Storing and Marketing Establishment highlighted the establishment's efforts to carry out project studies which would enhance the positive involvement of the establishment in the market, and according to the general tendencies of the government and the Ministry of Interior Trade and Consumers Protection. Some of the suggested projects are selling cars, electric equipment and furniture in payments and with reasonable prices, in addition to housing projects and establishing small markets for producers who would sell their products directly to the citizens, which would enable them to provide the necessary commodities with suitable prices. The General Director of the Mills Company, Engineer Abu Zaid Katbe, said that discussions would be carried out next week regarding providing 4 mills with equipment and machines, pointing out that the project would cost 58 million euros. He further asserted that the biggest challenge facing the company in providing the bakeries with flour is transferring it from one governor to the other, in addition to the lack of the packaging bags which used to be made at the textile companies in Aleppo governorate, which have closed down, so plastic bags are being used instead. The General Company of Fertilizers in Homs Governorate has produced 182,000 tons since the beginning of this year, including various types of fertilizers. The Director General of the company pointed out that 44,000 tons of the Calentro type has been produced and 102,000 tons of urea, in addition to more than 36,000 tons of phosphate. Oil rose above $115 a barrel, lifted by expectations that the U.S. Federal Reserve would unveil further steps to stimulate its economy this week. Some analysts believe the central bank will launch a third round of bond buying due to recent weak economic data from the United States, such as disappointing jobs numbers on Friday. Japan's Nikkei average sagged as investors cut their exposure to exporters and riskier stocks, awaiting a ruling from Germany's Constitutional Court on the legality of the European Bailout Fund and the U.S. Federal Reserve policy meeting this week. Gold rose, stimulated by a rise in the euro ahead of a key ruling from a German court on the legality of the Eurozone bailout fund, while holdings of the metal in exchange-traded products reached a record high. Sterling rose against the dollar, nearing a 4-month high. As it tracked gains in the euro, it climbed 0.5% on the day. And with this, we conclude our news. Thank you for watching and goodbye.